afternoon. We will call to order this Health and Human Services Committee regular meeting, June 26, 2024. Let us roll call. We're all here, so that's good. And the affidavit of posting was posted accurately. Let's rise for a moment of silent prayer and the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, we will consider those approved. Our first item will be the Veteran Service Quarterly Report. Kurt is up first. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. I feel like it's been a very long time since I've been in front of this committee. So I'm glad to be here. I'm Kurt Rush. For the new members that may or may not know me, I'm the County Veteran Service Officer. And we've got two items to talk about fairly briefly tonight. But the first is the EOS initiative that we've been working on for the last couple of years. That is the cemetery application marking all of the veterans' graves throughout the county. We're at a point where we're going to close that initiative. All of the main goals have been met. We're still in an ongoing process, and we will be forever, of collecting gravesite locations. As more veterans pass away, we'll be doing that obviously forever. But the bulk of the grave sites that are throughout the county have been collected at this point. We only, I think, have a few cemeteries outstanding, some in Richfield, some in Hartford area, that there's a clear plan to collect them. We have some groups that are going to go out and do that. So we're going to close out the initiative. And as the initiative has kind of worked through its process and unfolded, one of the last goals that we had was to share the information with the County Veteran Service Officer Association. And I believe that the GIS department separately shared it with their professional association. And we've gotten a lot of interest in the project that we did throughout the state, which is wonderful. And of course, it will help with some of the veterans from other counties who call up and say, hey, we don't have this in our county, why don't we have it here? Dodge County is moving forward on it. Last I heard, Fond du Lac called me today, Door County, several of the counties kind of within southeastern Wisconsin have reached out. So we've done a couple of meetings where we've informed them of how the project works, what they can do to start developing it. So it's very exciting. It's kind of led to this domino effect, which is what we hoped. So it's really neat. So that's going to be an ongoing, I don't want to say project because we're not going to commit a huge amount of time to it, but we are going to help people as needed to get it going. So that's the EOS project. And then secondarily, we started the Guitars for Vets chapter here in West Bend. And we have currently 4 students. That's our maximum. And our first student is actually graduating this Friday from the course. So it's very exciting. We got the guitar sent to us from the main Guitar for Vet parent organization. And he'll be given that guitar on Friday along with a T-shirt and a lot of thanks and applause. And we're going to try to put together a formal graduation event for our first class. I guess you'd call it class, in October. And hopefully we'll be able to invite, I don't know if we're going to invite the general public, but we'll invite stakeholders to that graduation ceremony as well. So we're very proud of that program. It's coming along well. Since it started, we've had a waiting list, which has been pretty great. It means there's a good amount of interest. And with a little luck, it's helping out these vets, too, that need something other, more positive in their life to put their efforts into. So with that, I guess I'll kind of pause and ask if there's any questions or thoughts or anything like that from you.
Kurt, going from your last on the Guitars for Vets, how does one go about participating or at least applying to participate if they're interested in helping with Instruct?
Yeah. Oh, to instruct?
Right.
They just reach out to me directly. There's 2 ways to do that.
Okay.
Either through my email and contact here at the county, or through now you're testing me because I'm going to have to remember the email address. I'm not going to remember it. It's a Guitars for Vet email address. We have it published.
Okay.
I believe it's wi.westbend@guitarsforvets@gmail.com.
Is it on the Veterans website?
It is, and we
Okay.
got it. And we got it publicized. And if anybody has any questions about that, they can certainly call or email me directly, and I will get that to them. But either way, if they reach out and say, "Hey, I'm interested in being an instructor," I'm going to call them almost immediately. So that would be great.
Okay.
It'd be great. We'd love to have people instruct, and we also want vets to reach out to participate. They may have to wait a few months on the waiting list, but that's okay. We'll still be here.
And so to confirm, the waiting list is for the veterans that
Correct.
want to participate, not instructors.
That is
Okay.
correct. Yep. We have two well-trained instructors right now, and Guitars for Vets best practices is only to do 2 veteran students at a time. So 4 is our maximum capacity right now. The more instructors we bring on, obviously, the more vets we'll have in training. But we don't want to burn out the instructors because it's weekly instruction, so it becomes a lot if you do more than 2 students.
Okay, and then back to our first part on your EOS related to other counties in Wisconsin. That's great. That's
Yes.
wonderful knowledge. Do you have the ability regionally to let others know about it as well, or nationally?
You mean within the service officers?
Well, no, within the Veterans Administration of the GIS.
Oh, yeah.
Project.
So I presented this, I'm sorry, maybe I neglected to mention it. I presented it at our professional organization conference last, it's spring. So March timeframe, March or April, I presented this to the conference, and that's what drew a bunch of interest. I'm going to present it again in fall. So we're going to kind of keep a little bit of a focus on it. And then certainly in our publications on it, we've shared it with the VA and with other regional stakeholders. I don't know that a lot of them from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs are really in a position to move it forward. But certainly CVSOs, my counterparts throughout the counties, they need to be the driving force. And quite frankly, I think a lot of them will be once they realize how great of a project it can be.
Sure.
Value added.
Thank you. Does
Thank
anyone
you.
else have any questions for Kurt?
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank you
so
very
much. Appreciate it.
Next on the agenda is the ADRC quarterly report. We have Tammy. Hi, Tammy. Welcome.
Hello. Hi, I'm Tammy Anderson. I'm the director at the Aging and Disability Resource Center. In your packet, I provided a very brief or high-level overview of ADRC services. I'm not going to read that to you, but I am going to go through what does an ADRC do for those of you that are new to the committee or just need a refresher. So ADRCs, we serve adults with disability and those that are aging all the way through end of life, providing resources and then connecting people with programs. We are not long-term care case managers, although we do serve the same clientele sometimes for years at a time. Once they're kind of connected with a resource or connected with a service or a program, that is where our services end. So typically when somebody calls our office, walks into our office, emails our office, they're going to get connected with one of 6 information and assistance specialists. And those folks are going to help get them connected, whatever that may be. It might be a one-touch where they just need a phone number, a contact, some sort of resource, all the way through enrolling people in a long-term care program, which would be several meetings. We do those meetings in our office, in the community, in people's homes, wherever they're living that best meets their needs. And then we also have several staff that work with benefits counseling. So that's all things Medicare, Medicaid, insurance, really nitty-gritty, high-level things where they can kind of cut through that red tape and help people figure out benefits or help with appeals, that sort of thing. We operate the senior dining program for the county, so we have 7 meal sites in which we serve congregate diners, and then we're delivering about 200, a little over 200 meals a day to those to those homebound seniors in our community. That program, those meals are delivered solely by volunteers, so we have a base of about 125 volunteers. So we're very grateful for that program. And then we run some health and wellness programs for older adults, so that's our 60-plus population, a variety of fitness classes, preventative health classes. Those are held either at the PAC or we partner pretty closely with the community centers and senior centers throughout the county. And then we also have one person dedicated to dementia support and caregiver support. So supporting those people that are caregivers in our community, and then helping those people with cognitive issues, dementia, Alzheimer's, that sort of thing. So real fast, high-level overview. Any initial questions?
I did. I'm just not sure where this could be, Chair. So with the dining program, I thought I saw in here in the EOS looking to expand that in some form or fashion.
Yep.
So what was the driver for that? Was that by demand from county residents?
So we're looking to, I just had this conversation yesterday in a different meeting. I guess innovate or expand, get more participation, particularly with our congregate diners. The senior dining program has, and this is not just Washington County, this is statewide, has kind of been the same. What the state dietitian had even mentioned, she found a menu from like 40 years ago, and it was pretty much, the same food. That generation likes what they like. So we're looking really to increase our congregate participation. We lost a lot of congregate diners through the pandemic. And then the state did allow for carry-out meals, which was previously not an allowable thing to do. And so people are going to, as they're allowed, come and pick up their meal and leave the site. And we're really losing that social connection piece. So moving into, to answer your question, the goals, we're exploring a restaurant site. This has been in the works for quite some time. We recently hired a new nutrition and wellness supervisor. She's been in place about 3 months. So she actually was out visiting a restaurant site in another community today. And we're working with the state on how that all works. There's kind of 2 different paths you can take, and I won't get into the weeds on that. But essentially, the diners come to a restaurant that the senior dining program contracts with, and they provide the food, just like our caterer would. And then residents are more likely to come to that sort of a setting rather than our senior dining sites that are sometimes in housing units or churches, more likely to come to a restaurant site. And we're hoping we can see some increased participation once we get that program up and running.
So is it safe to assume that there's maybe been an increase, well, let me rephrase that. So based upon some of the benefit counseling or other services, if we're seeing, well, let's, for lack of a better word, shut-in, right, and lack of social interaction, are we seeing more calls for benefit services, mental health services, and or maybe even the physical wellness, so under the health and wellness pillar? I would think if does that make sense? Are
Yeah.
different areas increase?
So I'm certainly not prepared to give that sort of data. I think we definitely have seen an increase in our benefit services, again, related to the pandemic and people, going through those financial struggles. I can certainly bring that sort of data, but I would say yes, if I were to pull numbers, which I haven't done very recently, year after year, we're seeing an increase in the number of contacts we're having with consumers that are calling about a variety of things.
So a positive outcome of the socialization with the dining could be, mitigating or abating mental health issue increases.
Definitely.
So on and so forth.
Loneliness, yeah.
Yeah, and we do have some programs running, and I'm part of a statewide coalition for social isolation and loneliness. So it's a big thing that the state is focusing on right now, and we're happy to be a part of it because we know what a concern that is. The other benefit of those congregate diners is we do like a monthly education that might just be something, on paper, but also bringing in speakers, kind of focusing on the topics that they're interested in learning about. So that's another way to get out to the public. If we have more people congregating, we can present kind of what our services are or what other services in the community are that they can connect to. Yes.
So kind of connecting this in, one thing I seem to remember, and you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, is that senior population, we all know, is susceptible to dementia-related diseases. Social isolation can accelerate the rate at which that happens, and socialization can help slow down the rate at which that happens. Is that right?
Yeah, social isolation is tied to many negative health outcomes, not just dementia-related diseases, but all sorts of physical-related diseases, mental health, all sorts of things. Yep, that is correct.
Chairman Schulteis.
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Thank you. My father-in-law was a volunteer driver for Meals on Wheels some years ago, and he often commented how the people just wanted to talk to him.
Yeah.
And that was before the pandemic, so I can only imagine what it is now.
Yeah, if we're ever in a real jam in the office and they're looking for somebody to drive meals, I'll gladly go out. It kind of keeps me in the game, and just that that daily check-in for that person, a Monday through Friday daily check-in, is really important.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I think we're good.
Okay,
Thank you, Tammy.
thank you.
Our next agenda item is the Drug Treatment Court 4-year report and the press release. And we're looking for Andy Freeman, the Diversion Program Manager, to join us. Welcome, Andy.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, and Andy Freeman, and glad to be here just after my first year, which is great, and glad to be seeing you guys again. Wanted to come and provide an update on Drug Treatment Court. And notice of the press release, which covers at least the funding source, which I believe was shared here previously, that we obtained another 4-year federal grant to continue the operation of Drug Treatment Court. I believe it says in the press release, this is for an increased amount, and our hope is that this allows us to our intent to expand the program and enhance various treatment or ancillary services within the program with that increased funding over the next 4 years. The press release and the information, and it gives participant outcome information that is accurate up to December 31st of 23. So one, to share that in general, letting both you guys and the community know that we've had a fair amount of graduates. Our graduates both maintain sobriety and those areas of their life which the having health insurance, driver's license, employment, safe and stable living, those are specific measurable areas that just in general reflect overall increased stability and wellness in multiple areas of life, including the recovery. So I wanted to share that with everyone and we're glad to have another 4 years.
Yes, and congratulations on the press release and the announcement of the grant. It was for $1 million, is that correct?
Correct.
What has it been in the past that this is more?
The previous 4 years was 500,000.
Oh, awesome.
So it's double.
So doubled. That's great. That's great. Julie, did you have anything you would like to add?
I just want to add, well, obviously, kudos to Andy and the team. It's, and certainly Judge Martins and Judge Giernoth, who've been the leaders in this initiative from the judicial side. I think it was last month or the month prior when I brought to you the data on the opioid settlement dollars. I had mentioned that we were holding off for a while on the recovery housing to wait to see if we got funding for drug treatment court, because that is one of our top priorities. So I'm very pleased with Andy's work and the work of the team to bring those dollars in for another 4 years and to be able to serve more individuals in the court as well. And I also just wanted to just call out, and a little kudos to Andy, but he did make the front page of the paper. So if you saw that yesterday.
Yes. Yeah, congratulations. And I would just like to acknowledge Judge Giernoth as well for her leadership and just, being there, constantly moving and charging forward with this. This is great. Thank you. Supervisor Galitz.
Thank you, Chair. So, Andy, I'm new to this, and while I've seen some of the presentations in the board in the past, looking at these 4-year summary and then extrapolating that for the next 4 years with double the funding, are we anticipating, serving more customers, clients? Because I think it said 41 clients served, and there's therapy and other metrics, but I'm assuming with increased dollars, the intent or goal is to serve more.
That is our intent. It comes down to the question of what is the community need, or what's the need within the criminal justice system. Our goal certainly is in expanding the funding, is to be able to serve an increased number of clients. I hope that we reach capacity again. That means we're able to meet even more clients' needs
Maybe another way to look at it too is, so if we were constrained, let's make an assumption we were constrained before with limited funding, and now with some additional funding, is it an opportunity to revisit what the services are and determine, are the available resources being best utilized in terms of meeting clients' needs or the community's needs, or some facets of that? I mean, does it give us opportunity to pause and revisit what the charter is and what the desired outcome is?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm trying to think how to meaningfully respond to that very large question, quite honestly. Yes, so part of, in the data that's provided in the packet and in the press release, that comes from a 4-year, more comprehensive program evaluation that looks at every aspect of the program and our outcomes. And as part of that, we evaluate ourselves against best practice, the needs of our clients, and then the impact that we're having. We review that both as a team and with the Washington County Drug Treatment Court Coordinating Committee, and that is our opportunity to evaluate what are the needs of our clients that are not being met, that we will now be able to target with additional funding so that we can better help them, and also what's a realistic capacity for us based on funding and increased staffing, and do we reasonably expect that we'll be able to meet the needs of the criminal justice system based on the information that we have. So many of those conversations have already taken place within that committee, and this next 4 years is an opportunity certainly to do everything you described.
And if I may also add on to that, just to sort of put it in a dollar and cents. So the previous grant for $500,000 came out to $125,000 per year. And so that we applied for that in 2019. And so we all also know what's happened since that time is inflationary costs and the cost needed to pay qualified individuals to do this work. And our community partner, Elevate, who provides the case management services for this program, has seen, that same, issue that we've seen at the county, right, about needing to ensure that we're meeting the cost of salaries to have qualified individuals. So having that additional or double the money, I think, gives them a little bit more capability of ensuring that they're able to bring on qualified staff. But there's also significant costs that go into drug testing and drug testing supplies. As well as, the treatment services and those type of things. I think it's a little known fact, because Elevate doesn't advertise it greatly, but they also do fundraising and receive other grant dollars to help offset this program. So they are, sort of bringing something to the table and helping to meet the cost of what this program is, because the $250,000 a year doesn't cover all of their costs. But in addition, we did put in our grant that we would serve more clients overall as well. So just wanted to give you that detail.
Thank you. Supervisor Bossert.
One thing I'd want to add into the discussion about the first 4 years is there's a lot of ramp-up time at the beginning that was involved. Judge Martins and the initial team had to get fully trained. Mm-hmm. Once they get their first person in the program, I believe it was about 18 months long, the average program length. So it was about 2 years in before we even had our first graduate. Whereas we start this new 4-year cycle, we probably have a few people in the program who are already close to graduating. So I think we're going to probably maybe reasonably see 6 to 8 a year graduates. Is that kind of a reasonable estimate in your eyes?
It would be difficult for me to estimate an average number of graduates per year because of what you just described, the numbers fluctuating so much in the beginning, first 4 years, because of ramp up. So I don't have a meaningful data-driven estimate to go off of, so that's why I hesitate. But your point is absolutely correct, that now that there's full program enrollment, we should see, or would expect to see, continued graduation and program and client, most importantly, is client success.
Yeah. By the way, I want to thank you for the metrics in your report. I think they're excellent at getting a picture of what's happening. What I would like to see if we can do is start figuring out what metrics for post-graduation we want to try to follow up on. This program is great if we have 15 graduates and 4 years from now, none of them is using it all, has any convictions, On the other hand, 4 years from now, if all 15 of them have new drug violations and, have employment issues, and, that reflects very differently. So I think having some post-graduation tracking to the extent that we can, and I know there's some privacy issues and there's only so much data we can get, but anything we can do to track people post-graduation and what their success is, I think, adds to the credibility of the program. So, yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I respond?
Oh, absolutely. I was just going to build on what he had to say.
Sure,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah.
Sorry.
I had jotted down a few questions about the metrics too. I really appreciate the dashboard, very much so, because it really does give you a quick glimpse at what's going on, and I really appreciate that. If we dig into it just a little bit, I'm curious about what Supervisor Bossert said. How long do we follow postgraduate time? How many years, how many months, how long of these 15, for example, are do we follow once they graduate?
I'm trying to think of the right question to ask, because following them after would be in different ways, and we'd gather different information depending on how we're following them. One thing you mentioned was post-program recidivism, which is one of the primary benchmarks of drug treatment courts' diversion programs. So certainly from a data standpoint, using what's available in the Wisconsin Circuit Court Access System, we will and are currently following clients after program completion for 1, 2, and 3 years to see if there's a new criminal charge, which we define as a recidivism event. And when we have a higher enough number of individuals that have 1, 2, and 3 years post-discharge, we'll conduct a comprehensive recidivism evaluation in partnership with our research and evaluation specialist. So that's one way. The second way is an area with the increased funding we're focusing on enhancing, which is our aftercare, continuing care services. I would say right now, Elevate, the treatment providers involved on our team, have done a fantastic job in providing services to clients after discharge on a voluntary basis. Because it's on a voluntary basis, I believe there's survey data that's available, but in terms of specific metrics, I don't have the ability to speak to that right now, unfortunately. Elevate also has done a lot in the last 4 years in terms of offering semi-annual events to participants, graduates of the diversion programs, so OWI diversion program, DPA diversion program, and drug treatment court, just to help those individuals stay connected and also to continue to engage with them. So.
So I was going to ask what the recidivism rate was, and especially for our 15 graduates, if that might be something you could put on the dashboard. If that's, it would be helpful for us to know, I think, maybe the public as well. I don't know what our current recidivism is, and since you're following them 1 to 3 years post-graduation, did you say also that some of it's voluntary when you're following them?
We use information that's publicly available through the state court system to track recidivism. So that is, we let clients know that we track recidivism in the beginning in terms of what kind of follow-up we do, but in terms of requiring any specific kind of, it's not a client contact. Yeah.
Okay, you're just going off of court records.
Yeah, if I can just add to, I think as Andy had said, to be able to articulate a statistically significant recidivism rate, either positive or negative, your N, the number of people, has to be much larger, and you have to be able to follow them for a longer period of time. So, you know, we can talk anecdotally, but I am also hesitant to put that information out into the public without, you know, having a full evaluation completed. And we're just, frankly, too soon in the program to be able to do that. There are some dollars earmarked in this grant for our evaluator to start doing some of that, because as we get over the next 4 years, we'll be able to, you know, start looking at that data, but the N also has to be much larger.
So you're looking for a larger aggregate number to be able to not be so identifying.
Correct.
Okay, that's helpful to know. Thank you. And I was curious if the grant also had, like, is it outcomes driven? I'm assuming they're looking for, you need to check this box for outcomes based information. And that would be some of those statistics you talked about from a larger aggregate number.
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Not only is it a grant requirement, myself, the entire team, I firmly believes in program evaluation as an ethical application to make sure we're doing the best that we can for our clients in the community. And there are state and national best practice standards and measures that we use to evaluate how we're doing, whether or not we're on track, and if we're having the impact. So some of them we report on for funding requirements, others we do to help us evaluate ourselves, and some change over time. First 4-year measures are not always your active next 4-year program measures. So it's another part of that 4-year evaluation and adjustment.
Perfect. Supervisor Gallitz.
I don't want to make an assumption, so I'm going to ask a question. It says total clients served 41, graduates 15. Are all clients served potentials to be graduates? So are the 15 of 41, that's the graduation quote-unquote rate, and a third kind of dropped out, or a third were successful and 2/3 dropped out, or were there other services? The reason why I ask that is I'm just thinking, we talk about this additional funding, and I would suspect that there may be more demand than supply, meaning available spots for this. And then, if so, how then do you determine best fit? So if you have a large dropout rate, how do you refine that selection process to maybe better ensure that there's more graduates? Not to make the numbers look good, but to serve those that truly want to be served and helped. Or at least that's just what comes to my mind.
Yes, phenomenal question. So the information of the total served, there are three subsets: graduated, non-graduated, which would include clients that were terminated, administrative discharges, both combined, and active clients. So I believe the 15 out of 41 total served, it's not 15 out of 41, it's 15 out of our total number of discharges at the time. I believe our graduation rate as of December 31st, 23 was around 55, 56%. Currently, as of June 1st, we've had 18 graduates, and our graduation rate is at about 58%. As far as ensuring we're serving an appropriate target population, that is absolutely something we focus on. There are a number of best practice measures that describe what kind of population an adult drug treatment court is supposed to serve versus other kinds of diversion programs. So also one of the reasons for operating both a diversion program structured as a DPA and an adult drug treatment court. I'm sure many of you have heard the description of the different populations. Adult drug treatment court is targeted to serve individuals that are categorized as high risk, high need, high risk to recidivate, high treatment need, and DPA diversion, which is maybe more moderate intensity. If drug treatment court is high intensity, is meant to be for individuals that are low or moderate risk to recidivate, but who also may have significant, so from low to high treatment needs. And we absolutely evaluate that. There are standardized screenings tools that we use as part of a screening and assessment process to make sure we're serving the correct target population. And that's also something we report to our funders, and they evaluate us on, is are you serving an appropriate target population, because it would impact your outcomes.
Supervisor Bosser.
Thank you.
Yep. So I'm glad you brought up the high-risk population, because we know we're going to have some dropouts. This is a very high-risk population. Obviously, we don't want them to get too high, but I think, to Supervisor Gallitz's point, knowing the raw number of dropouts in the same time period is helpful in kind of gauging that graduation rate and seeing how overall successful it's going to be. But we're not going to ever be anywhere close to 100% with the high-risk population we're working with. We know we're going to have people who are going to be non-compliant to the point where we have to dismiss them from the program. So, but is that something we can add, is the number of administrative drops and dropouts that we've had so far, so we can kind of see that compared to the graduates?
It is, certainly. What I'm hearing is probably more interest in the program's measures than maybe I was aware of there was, which I can't tell you how much I appreciate. People always told me, Andy, less data, more pictures, which is why infographic. But if there is an interest from county board community, that's something I'm more than happy to work on. Our research and evaluation specialist and myself have talked about developing a Power BI dashboard for program measures, and that's something I would love to prioritize if there's an interest there.
Yeah, I think the data lends credibility to the program. And, you know, for the community's sake, I know that nobody in the drug treatment program would ever sacrifice quality to achieve a statistical outcome.
Right.
You know, we're holding these people to the requirements of the program. And to a certain extent, having some dropouts adds credibility to that too. This is not a cakewalk. They have to meet very strict requirements, and we do enforce those.
And Andy, I would say keep the pictures, just add a couple more. So,
And if I could add something to that, Supervisor Schulteis, there is an enormous amount of data that we do have, and Andy and I have talked quite a bit about sort of like how much do you give people, right? Especially the general public. But I definitely know, like I said, this is a high priority program for the county. And so we certainly can commit to coming back and giving another report over time and giving this committee a little bit more meat of the data. Sometimes it is so much that you're trying to make sense of it. And so trying to get that right balance, I think, of what's the information where you get a good sense of what's happening, or being very overwhelmed with just charts upon charts. Right. So I certainly think I appreciate that and think that we certainly can bring some more of that deeper information back to you.
thank you, Julie.
And not to belabor this, and again, it's not getting into that. I know committee's not supposed to get into sausage making, let's call it that. And there are probably some expectations for privacy rights and that to Supervisor Bosser. So I get all that. But today, I'm just thinking ahead, right? So if this proves to be successful and we want it to repeat itself, but let's say there's not a grant available in 4 years or 2028, well, guess what? If the county's going to consider funding it somehow, some way, it's going to want to be able that narrative, tell the story. Okay, so what is it that we're doing, why we're doing it, and how successful has it been for the last 8 years, presumably, going forward for. So that's the part that's important.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. Thank you.
If I may add, Supervisor Gallett's opened a good can of worms. I've gone to the drug court on several occasions. If anybody has time at 2 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, go and watch. It's very moving. And then, to your point, if we're talking about funding this at some point in the future, we got to know about it. We got to know what goes on. So I urge you to make the time sometime. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. The only other one I had is just how do we compare to other counties? And Waukesha is one that comes to mind because I know that early on in 2020, I think we were using theirs as somewhat of a model, if that's accurate.
Unfortunately, I trust your recollection. Unfortunately, not being here in 2020, I'm not sure if there was a particular county we were using as a model. My understanding of comparing ourselves to another measure is that given the significant differences in counties, not just size, demographics, but also in their programs. Even though there are established best practice standards, county programs, number of participants they serve, treatment resources in their community, the structure of their program and team can vary widely. My understanding is that it's best to compare our say graduation rate or recidivism rate, if we're going to compare ourselves to something, is to the average of for example, all adult drug treatment courts in Wisconsin, or all adult drug treatment courts nationally. That's also information that is summarized and available by experts that are overseeing the programs or providing the funding at a state and national level. And that is absolutely something we can do.
Excellent. Thank you. You've been very informative and helpful for us. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much, Andy. Our last agenda item is to update the Human Services fee schedule. I know that Julie will address this one.
Yes. So just to bring you up to speed, we generally set our fee schedule during the biennium budget time frame. And then anytime we want to make any adjustments outside of that, we do bring it to this committee for acknowledgement and understanding. So we currently have an intoxicated driver program that the county is statutorily required to run for any individuals who have an OWI. We contract with Elevate, who provides that program for the community. The way that they get their funding is strictly by the payment that the individual makes, which is required by the court system, that they have this assessment to determine, what their treatment needs may or may not be. And so the way that they run this program is all by their fee that they charge the individual who has been charged with an OWI. And so they are asking to up their rate for a number of reasons. They went to an electronic system where people can just pay that online versus having to deal with sort of people sending in checks or coming in and paying. And so there is a fee associated with running that system, as well as they're just seeing obviously increased costs for their staff, and so they're looked across the state to see what other IDP programs were charging, and so to help cover their costs, they want to align their rate with sort of what the standard is.
Got it. I would assume inflation has gotten that too. So, any questions at all? Is this a motion or? Okay, a motion and a.
So I think the answer is yes. This is just a pass through to those quote unquote.
Elevate.
Right, but those that are required to participate in this program, that increase in fee from whatever $260 to $290,
Yeah.
They pay that.
That's correct.
Right. So we just need procedurally to demonstrate that increase. Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Correct, because we are the responsible entity for this program. We have to get have the fee posted and approved.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
All right. By Supervisor Bossert and Supervisor Gallatin. Any other questions or comments? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. That passes. Okay. Our next meeting date is July 24th.